Welcome to Hedgehog Friendly Schools. My name's Jo and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about hedgehogs today. I've always loved hedgehogs. Have you ever seen a hedgehog in real life? I have, and they're really beautiful and wonderful creatures. Here's a few photos of me looking for hedgehogs as part of my job. In this photo, in the pink jacket, you can see me looking for hedgehog footprints. In this photo in the middle, you can see me giving a health check to a hedgehog. And here at the photo on the other side, you can see me rummaging through a hedge looking for hedgehogs. And this is all part of my job. What do you know about hedgehogs? In your head, I want you to think of one thing that you know about hedgehogs. So just have a think, just take 1 minute and have a little think. Is it, what do they look like? What do they sound like? What do they eat? Just have a little think. And if you thought of any of these things, that's amazing. That's really well done. So hedgehogs are quite small. Hedgehogs have a long nose. Hedgehogs curl into a ball. Hedgehogs are covered in spikes. So yeah, that's right. Hedgehogs are all of these things and more. And that's what we're going to talk to you a little bit about today. So I hope that by the end of today's assembly that you will love hedgehogs and be as passionate about hedgehogs as I am, and that we can turn you all into hedgehog heroes. So to start with, what is a hedgehog? So a hedgehog is an animal that lives all across the UK, and that's where we live in the UK. Now, the hedgehog that we have here in the wild in the UK is one of 17 different species of hedgehog across the world. Our hedgehog that we have here in the UK is a wild animal. So they're not pets. There is a certain kind of hedgehog that can be kept as a pet, and this is a different species altogether. And they're called an African pygmy hedgehog. Now, that's not the hedgehog that we're going to be talking about today. They're a small mammal. So hedgehogs are small mammals. So mammals are the types of animals that are warm-blooded, that have a backbone, and they have hair or fur and produce milk. They also give birth to live babies. What do hedgehogs look like? We've seen a few photos already, but hedgehogs have a really lovely long sniffly nose, and they use that nose to sniff out prey, things like insects and bugs in the environment. And the environment is where they live. And I just want to show you, let you have a listen to the sound of a hedgehog. Have a little listen. How great is that? You can hear that hedgehog using its nose to sniff around in the grass and hunting out its food. So they also are covered in spikes or spines, as you can see in that picture there. So they're covered, their back is absolutely covered in these spikes or spines, up to 6,000 or 7,000 of them. And they give hedgehogs really good protection from predators. But their belly is actually really furry or hairy, so they don't have prickles or spikes all over their body, just over their backs. Hedgehogs are able to curl up into a ball, which is a really, really fantastic way to keep themselves safe. If they feel scared, they can curl themselves into this tight ball that essentially is a ball of prickles, which is a really great protection from predators, right? It's very clever. And hedgehog babies. So hedgehog babies are called hoglets. That's the word for hedgehog babies. And these babies are born pink, blind, and really tiny. So you can see there, that's a picture of some hoglets down in the bottom. Aren't they lovely? So they're just really small and pink versions of the adult hedgehogs. Aren't they great? So quick video to show you of a hedgehog. So for those of you that would like to see what a hedgehog moves like or has never seen one in the wild before. Isn't that a great video? So you could see that hedgehog was covered in those prickles or spikes, and you could even hear it making that sniffing or snuffling sound as it got closer to the camera. And in that video, you'll see that hedgehog is in somebody's garden. If you're very lucky, you may have hedgehogs coming to visit your garden. How do hedgehogs behave? Well, for starters, hedgehogs are nocturnal. So hedgehogs are a type of animal that are active at night and sleep throughout the day. Hedgehogs also hibernate. Hibernation is a word that describes a behaviour or a type of thing that animals do over the winter when temperatures drop, when it's really cold. And when there's not very much food around, they go into basically a long sleep. What they'll do is they'll build themselves a lovely nest out of leaves, and they'll hunker down and have a long sleep over months at a time over winter. So it's very interesting that over winter we don't really tend to see hedgehogs. Oh, and here's an interesting behaviour. Hedgehogs are the only animal in the whole world to do this behaviour that you can see in the photo at the bottom there. It's called self-anointing. So hedgehogs, if they smell a funny smell that they're not very familiar with, what they'll do is they'll froth up all of the saliva in their mouths and then lick it all onto the back of their spines. So it can look very funny. And that behaviour is called self-anointing. What do hedgehogs eat? Well, we've talked about this already a little bit. Hedgehogs eat mostly insects, bugs, things like earthworms and beetles and slugs, even the odd caterpillar, maybe millipedes, or shield bugs and that sort of thing, which is quite interesting, isn't it? So hedgehogs eat mostly insects, and they're foraging or looking around in our gardens or in our local parks, or maybe even on our school playgrounds, looking for these lovely delicious bugs. But they can also eat some really strange things too. So this photograph, you can see a hedgehog that's eating a toad or a frog, and they've been known to even eat snakes or even ground nesting birds' eggs. So they may eat eggs as well. So it's quite interesting. They eat quite a big range of things, and they're the type of animal that we call an omnivore. So that means they eat lots of different types of things. What's interesting about the hedgehog, and something that you can remember and tell, go home and tell your parents or your family about, is that hedgehogs can also eat cat food and dog food. In fact, it's quite good for them, and it's something really nice and simple that you can do to help the hedgehogs that come to visit you in your garden or possibly even on your school grounds. So cat food and dog food is really, really quite good for hedgehogs. It's got all of the nutrients that hedgehogs need to survive. Please don't feed hedgehogs milk or bread. It can make them very, very poorly. So what else do hedgehogs need to survive? Hedgehogs are a lot like us as humans because they need food and water to survive. So If you can, you could put a shallow dish of water in your garden at home or even in your garden at school to help animals like hedgehogs, but also other wildlife too. Hedgehogs also need somewhere to sleep. And there's loads of different places that hedgehogs can build their nests to curl up and have a little sleep in. So it could be a leaf pile. A pile of leaves is a really good place for hedgehogs to have a sleep. It could be a pile of logs. It could be a hedgerow or hedge. Or it could be a hedgehog box or a hedgehog house. You might even have one of these at home in your garden. These are all fantastic places for hedgehogs to build their nests. But hedgehogs also need lots of lovely wild spaces or habitat. In your garden, lots of lovely wild spaces are really good for hedgehogs, but they also need a way in to your garden. So a hedgehog highway or hole in the bottom of a fence or wall, or perhaps underneath a gate, will let a hedgehog come and go as it pleases. They need a lot of these open spaces and access into all of our gardens so that they can feed and drink and build their nests and even meet other hedgehogs to mate with. So it's really important that we think about letting hedgehogs into our gardens. So what is good hedgehog habitat? Or what even is habitat? So the word habitat is a word that we use to describe the natural home or environment of an animal, plant, or other organism. So the types of habitat that hedgehogs really love are things like flowers or wildflowers. And you'll have seen wildflowers, all these lovely, beautiful, bright, different colours of flowers that come out in the spring and in the summer. They're really, really fantastic for pollinators like bees and other insects. But they're also a really good way to bring in natural food sources for hedgehogs. So they'll attract beetles that hedgehogs need to eat to survive. So wildflowers is one really good thing you can do to help hedgehogs. Having longer grass is another really good thing you can do to help hedgehogs. So long grass is a great place for hedgehogs to rest during the day. Having hedges or hedgerows is one of the best things that you can do to help hedgehogs. So if you have hedges in your garden, then that's really fantastic. Hedgehogs might be using those hedges to build their nests in at the bottom of those hedges. But also trees. Trees are really important for wildlife and nature, and they're really important for us too. But for hedgehogs, they're a very important part of the habitat because trees drop their leaves, and hedgehogs use these leaves to build their nests with. So without trees, hedgehogs couldn't survive. And log piles. Log piles are also fantastic hedgehog habitat because hedgehogs can build their nests underneath log piles, but log piles also encourage lots of lovely beetles and other insects. So there's a lot that we can do to help hedgehogs, to help improve hedgehog habitat. Also, things like brambles and nettles, which we think, oh no, those are spiky and they hurt us. But hedgehogs really love brambles and nettles because they provide really good protection from predators. So if they build their nests out of leaves underneath brambles and nettles, then they can stay safe while they are hibernating or in their breeding nests with their babies. It's really, really smart, a very, very clever way for hedgehogs to stay safe. So we can be leaving all of these brambles and nettles for hedgehogs to build their nests under. So those are some really good examples of good hedgehog habitat. But how do we know if hedgehogs are nearby? We can be on the lookout for hedgehog footprints. footprints. So this is a hedgehog footprint tunnel that picks up small black inky prints of animals that use your garden or perhaps even your school grounds. Here are hedgehog footprints. They look like little handprints, but they've just got four, you can just see four sort of finger-like toes. They're very sweet and lovely. You could also use a camera, a wildlife camera. You could put this out in your garden, or you could put this out in your on your playground overnight, and then check it in the morning to see what came to visit. And if you look closely, you can see on that picture there's a hedgehog just right there in the corner. You can also look for hedgehog poo. So hedgehog poo is really interesting. If you look at this picture, you can see it's very, very dark in colour, so it's very dark brown or even black. And it's about the size of your little finger. So lift up your little finger and have a look. They're about that size. And what's really interesting about hedgehog poo is that it's full of bits of beetle shell and insect wings, because they eat insects, but there's parts of those insects that they can't digest, so they poo them out, which is really, really interesting. If we ever see these poos in our garden or in our playground, then we know it's a hedgehog poo. So it'd be interesting if you've ever seen one of those, and perhaps you can have a look in the playground a little later on today. You could also be looking out for hedgehogs' spikes. So remember, hedgehogs are covered in spikes to protect them from predators, but they can lose some of these spikes, just as we do our hair. So the odd one or two spikes comes out every now and again, and you may be able to see these if you have a look on. You're looking for something quite small. So they're quite small, maybe just half the size of your little finger, and they're brown and white in colour with a really, really sharp end. So have a look for spikes. And you may be lucky enough to see a hedgehog's nest. And a hedgehog's nest looks just like this photograph. So a big ball of leaves with a tiny little entrance hole, probably underneath a bramble patch or a hedge. Now, please never disturb a hedgehog's nest. If you think that there's a hedgehog nesting in your garden or in your playground, then that's fantastic. But they are wild animals and we shouldn't disturb them because we may cause them harm. So are hedgehogs already in your area at school? So teachers, please pause the video and go to this website, bighedgehogmap.org. Just spend a few minutes, maybe up to 5 minutes, having a look to see if hedgehogs have been spotted in your area. So that's bighedgehogmap.org, and then you just need to put your postcode in on the website. And you can see on that website in pink if hedgehogs have been spotted nearby. The red circles are dead hedgehogs or hedgehogs that have been found dead on the roads. So have a little look, pause the video now, and then come back to us when you've checked. So did you find hedgehogs in your area? If so, fantastic. If not, that's not that surprising. Hedgehogs actually really need our help right now. We've lost up to half of our hedgehogs in the last 20 years. Hedgehogs are now vulnerable to extinction in Britain. So what does extinction mean? When an animal dies out, that species is extinct. Once a species becomes extinct, it is gone forever. So hedgehogs are very vulnerable to becoming extinct here, which is really sad. I'm sure you agree. I absolutely love hedgehogs, and I would hate to see a day where there aren't any left. And there are a number of reasons why hedgehogs are vulnerable to extinction here. And you can see on the screen some examples there. Unfortunately, hedgehogs often get caught in litter or rubbish that's been left on the ground. When they get trapped, they can't get themselves free and they may die of starvation. Hedgehogs often die on our roads. They can be run over as they're they're crossing the road. So those of you that have seen a hedgehog in real life before, perhaps it was one that had been squashed on the side of the road. Hedgehogs can also get caught up in bonfires. Bonfire night is really fun for us, but it's very, very hazardous to wildlife because lots of animals can hide or nest in log piles. And log piles are the things that we set on fire on bonfire night, which is very sad and very worrying. So please remember that come bonfire night. Other threats to hedgehogs include habitat loss. So if you remember, habitat is where an animal lives. And for hedgehogs, their habitat is things like hedges, it's things like long grass, it's things like countryside, it's things like brambles, and that we don't have as much of that habitat here in Britain available anymore. So you can see that photo in the middle of a garden, somebody's garden, that has no green space. It has no green space whatsoever. And that's quite common in gardens now. So what that means for the hedgehog is that the habitat that they need to feed, to meet other hedgehogs or to build their nests in, is becoming much and much reduced. So we just don't have as much of it anymore, which is really sad. But also, we humans, we don't really like things like slugs or beetles because they can eat our plants. So we often put down slug killer or pellets or poisons or things called pesticides that remove all of the hedgehog's natural food source. So they don't have as much food left anymore, which is really sad. But also hedgehogs can be eaten or attacked by predators, so things like dogs or foxes or even badgers. So there's an awful lot of reasons why hedgehogs are now vulnerable to extinction here, and we're seeing the numbers of hedgehogs go down and down and down. Thankfully, you can be a hedgehog hero at school to hopefully turn those numbers around and start to see hedgehogs all over the place again. And there's loads of ways that you can do this at school. You can pick up litter that's been dropped. You can look for hedgehog footprints. You can build hedgehog habitat like log piles. You can learn about hedgehogs in your classes. You can do projects about hedgehogs. You can learn how to really help them. You can even plant trees and hedges at your school. There's loads of ways that you can get involved. And all of those things that you can do at school will help to bring hedgehogs back from the brink of extinction. And if you're lucky enough, you may even get a Hedgehog Friendly Schools award. So that's what you're going to be doing this year. You're going to be working on all of these actions and more to make your school more hedgehog friendly. And at the end of it, we're going to give you an award for that. So that's fantastic. So really well done for joining the Hedgehog Friendly Schools campaign. And we really look forward to seeing what you're going to be doing. But you can also help hedgehogs at home. You can be a hedgehog hero at home as well. So have a think about your garden at home. If it has a pond like this one here, make sure that there's an escape route or ramp for hedgehogs, because hedgehogs can swim really well, but they won't be able to climb out of steep ponds. So having a little ramp at the side is one of the best things you can do to help hedgehogs in your garden. You can put log piles in. So if you've got any old logs lying around, you can stack them in a pile in a corner, and that's a really good place for a hedgehog to nest and to feed as well. You may even want to build or maybe even buy a hedgehog house, a hedgehog nest box. You can feed hedgehogs. So remember, hedgehogs will eat cat food and dog food. Those are two really good things that you can feed hedgehogs at home. Don't use things like pesticides or slug killers, because they're really, really bad for hedgehogs. They get rid of hedgehogs' food, and they may even cause harm to the hedgehogs as well by poisoning the hedgehog. Look to plant lots of wildflowers, so things like this on the screen, so things like daisies that are going to encourage lots and lots of insects to come and visit your garden, which will be a good food source for hedgehogs. And don't forget, and this is very important, that your garden needs a way in for hedgehogs, so a hedgehog highway, a small gap in the bottom of your fence or wall or underneath a gate. And this doesn't need to be a big gap, just the size of a CD case is the perfect size to let hedgehogs come and go. And if you're lucky and you can do all these wonderful things to become a hedgehog hero at home, you may soon see hedgehogs roaming around in your garden. So thank you very much for listening, and a big warm welcome to Hedgehog Friendly Schools.